What is up, everybody? This is your boy Blue here, bringing you the third Dungeons and Dragons Commander precon box opening. We are going to we're going to actually do today the Dungeons of Death Commander precon. It's the blue, black, and white one with Sefris of the Hidden Ways. I'm going to go ahead and open the box. We're going to show you what's inside, and then I'm going to give you a little upgrade guide at the end. So let's just get started, and we'll go from there. Alright, so here comes the sound. Let's open it up and see what we got. Put that to the side. Got this with the things, the little tabs that I still haven't figured out what they're good for. Here is the box that it comes in, the little deck box. Not bad. This one's cool colors. Blue and purple. Alright. And we got the divider. Doesn't do anything for me. Alright, here is the life counter. It's not bad. They're all the same. You got a little insert that does nothing. And then we got the deck that comes in the box. So let me open it up and then we'll get into it. If I can open it. I always have problems with them. Alright, let me clear the way here and let's take a look at what we got. So let me zoom in so you all can see. And then we'll go from there. Alright, so it's Sefris of the Hidden Ways is the main commander. So with that, it's blue, black, and white, and that's it. It's 3 to cast for a 2/3 human wizard. And the ability is whenever one or more creature cards are put into your graveyard from anywhere, you venture into the dungeon, and this ability triggers only once each turn. Then it has another ability, Create Undead. Whenever you complete a dungeon, you can return target creature card from your graveyard to the battlefield. So this guy is all about venturing into the dungeon and then recurring from the graveyard. Pretty much it's what the colors black, blue, and white want to do. The secondary commander is Neilor, and it is one white, 1 black, 1 blue, and 2 of any. He is a horror, or it is a horror actually. It's a 3/5. When it enters the battlefield, for each opponent, tap up to 1 untapped creature you control. And when you do, you gain control of target creature that player controls with power less than or equal to the tapped creature's power for as long as you control it. And then whenever you attack with the creature an opponent owns, you gain 2 life and that player loses 2 life. So you can see that there's a secondary theme in here. So aside from venturing into the dungeon and aside from graveyard recursion, there's a small sub-theme of what black and white likes to do, which is aristocrats. So let's go into what else is in the deck. I'm not going to read them all to you. I'm just going to show you. And if you want to see what the card does, if I'm going too fast, I apologize. You can just pause the video. Alright, so it starts off with a minimum containment. And then Hana Peshar Ruin Seeker. So it's a legendary creature itself, and this is room abilities of Dungeon June trigger an additional time, so that's a great addition to this kind of deck. Dungeon Map, it ventures into the dungeon, and it's a mana rock for you. Evolving Wilds. Bucknard's Everfull Purse. This one's chances to do things with rolling a d4. Let's see what else. Clay Golem, another dice roller. Component Pouch. Ronin Unicorn. Swords to Plowshares, or STP. Wall of Omens, that's a good card. It's been around for a while as a oldie but a goodie. Forbidden Alchemy. Merfolk Looter. Mole Drifter. The reason for Mole Drifter is the evoke. It makes a creature sacrifice itself, so it goes into the graveyard, so this is a self-sacrificer. Murder of Crows. Propaganda. Plague Crafter, another addition here that's pretty good. When I do my suggestions, I'm going to suggest a couple of these as well. What they do is they come into play and then they make everybody sacrifice a creature, including you. And usually you just sacrifice this creature because that's what it's for. Reassembling Skeleton for the returning from your grave to the battlefield. So you can recur things back. So when they die, they trigger your commander and aristocrat stuff and all that good stuff. Shriek Maw, another evoker. So it can sacrifice itself when it comes into play. Unburial Rites, so more graveyard recursion. Victimize, same thing. Cloud Blazer, this is probably one of the things that you might switch out when I get the upgrade section. Despark. Necrotic Sliver, another one that might come out just as well, maybe. Obsessive Stitcher. Vanquish into Memory. An Arcane Signet, like every other deck does. A Burnished Heart, it's actually not bad for a budgetary commander deck. Burnished Hearts help you go get 2 lands. Commander Sphere, so Mana Rock. Immovable Rod. Radiant Solar. Or Solar, whatever. Revivify. That's a tongue twister. Revivify. Thorough Investigation. I'm actually going to tell you that this is probably the best inclusion for a new card that the deck has. I'll explain at the end of the video why I think this is actually really good. Probably the best card in here. Arcane Endeavor. Wily Illusionist. This actually can be its own deck. I actually like this for its own commander deck. Phantom Steed. Rod of Absorption. A lot of rods in this deck. Grave Endeavor. Another Endeavor. Wand of Orcus. More wands. Extract Brain. Midnight Path Lighter. Cataclysmic Gearhulk. Eternal Dragon. So it actually returns itself as well. So more graveyard recursion. Karmic Guide. This one's actually helps with combos. So Karmic Guide, if you can get it to keep going back into play, helps you get cards back from your graveyard to the battlefield. Sun Titan, same thing, helps you recur things. Sunblast Angel. Champion of Wits. Creator of Mysteries. Most likely, I understand that cycling helps you get cards into your graveyard that are creatures, so you can, I guess, during your opponent's turn, trigger your commander, but I don't know. Phantasmal Image. Doomed Necromancer. Necromantic Selection. Ashen Rider. I think that was a throw-in. I know it exiles a permanent, but that casting cost is just too high. Baleful Strix. Hostage Taker. Utter End. Good removal, spot removal. And Solemn Simulacrum helps you go get a land. When it dies, which you're gonna probably make it die, you draw a card, and then obviously you're gonna recur that a couple times. So you can go get a land, ramp up a little bit, draw a card. So it's a 3-color deck, so they're gonna have varied budget dual lands. So like Choked Estuary, then they're probably gonna have all 3 versions of that. Darkwater Catacombs. Exotic Orchard. Now, in a 3-color deck, the Exotic Orchards make sense because it's going to hit on one of your opponents is going to be playing, unless they're playing literally the opposite colors. It's going to hit. Gyre Reach Sanitarium makes everybody draw a card and then discard a card. That's actually good in the Kusar. High Market helps you sack creatures to gain a life. Nimbus Maze and Port Town. Like I said, from Choked Estuary, you're going to have versions of different dual lands. Prairie Stream, Sunken Hollow, Felwar Stone. Again, this is kind of like the Exotic Orchard. It helps you tap it for basically mana that your opponent can produce. Meteor Golem, a Soul Ring, naturally. A Wayfarer's Bauble. I'm actually shocked that they added this into a precon, but good for them. It's actually a pretty good card for, I believe it's for Pauper. Or for, what's the artifact-driven one in Modern? I forget the name off the top of my head. Arcane Sanctum. It's the Tri-Land. Azorius Chancery. I'm going to guess that there's going to be the other 2 of them as well, the bounce lands. Command Tower. Demir Aqueduct. There's the second one. Esper Panorama. That's a good fetch. It's the actual Tri-Fetch. There it is. Orzhov Basilica. And then a Terramorphic Expanse. I think the Thrivings are going to have all 3, which they are. Lightning Greaves to protect your commander. And then looks like, some plains, some islands, some swamps. The thick version of the commander. And then tokens, they got illusions. Let's see, illusions. Clues. Oh, they put the dungeons in here. They didn't put the one that I was hoping for, unfortunately, because the other one's the one that I would use. Let me see what's on the other side of these tokens. Lost. There it is. There's the other one. Okay, so they did that. All right, so you got all 3 dungeons. You got treasure tokens, goblin tokens, zombie tokens, skeleton tokens, and a Champions of Wits token because, well, there's a Champion of Wits in here. So that's what's inside the box. That's the deck that is included. The deck out of the box, it's not bad, but boy, can it use some upgrades, especially in the venturing into the dungeon aspect of it. So All right. So that is what's in the box. I'm going to now go into the upgrade guide section. It's only going to be a few things, so I'm going to get started on that right now. Alright, so we're going to start it off like I always do with the land section. And what I've been doing recently when I'm going over lands is I'm going to tell you, again, dual lands, pick whatever you can afford. Obviously, there are a lot for this deck because it's 3 colors. So, you know, you've got the dual lands, the shock lands. Those are going to run you a big amount. Fetch lands, and then you've got, like, shock lands and stuff like that. Check lands and stuff like that. So just whatever you can afford to do. There are a lot of them. I won't give you the names because you can just look that up easily. So we're going to move forward onto some other stuff that's useful for the deck besides just mana fixing dual lands. Dungeon Descent is a great card for this deck. It helps you trigger dungeon adventuring so you can get through a dungeon quicker. Phyrexian Tower is a good sack outlet for your creatures. It also helps you, it gives you extra mana. Diamond Valley, which you'll never find because it's a reserve list card and it's from Arabian Nights, will help. You can sacrifice creatures to it to gain life, but you'll never find it. But I'm still going to let you know it's available. Urza's Saga, I'm probably going to make that suggestion for every deck, and eventually I'm just going to stop doing it and showing you what it does, but I'll show you what it does. Let you go get a 0 or 1 artifact, a 0 or 1 mana value artifact. Most likely you're going to use it to go get a Soul Ring or a Mana Crypt. Cabal Coffers and Urborg Tomb of Yawgmoth is the combo that you would do, that everybody likes to do when they're in black because it helps you ramp up a lot. You can also control the mana. And then you've got the castles from all 3 colors. So Ardenvale lets you put 1/1s into play. They are good sack fodder and blockers. Locktwain lets you draw cards, and if you go into an aristocrat style theme, you'll have enough life to not worry about the life that it's going to cost you to draw the cards. And you've got Castle of Vantress lets you scry too, so you'll be able to at least manipulate the top of your deck so that you can get better draws. So that's a couple of the lands that I would suggest. Alright, so now we're going to go into the ramp section for the deck, and this one's going to be pretty straightforward. It's mostly just mana rocks and a couple of spells. So there are the somewhat budget but not really budget 2 casting cost mana rocks that I'll suggest. Fractured Power Stone, because it's 2 to cast and lets you tap it for a colorless. Doesn't come into play tap. Same thing with Liquid Metal Torque and a Mind Stone. Prismatic Lens also does that. But then you've also got the talismans. All 3 talismans that you can use: the Talisman of Dominance, Talisman of Hierarchy, and Talisman of Progress. They do damage to you, but at least they help with mana if you haven't fixed your mana yet. Thought Vessel lets it so that if you draw a lot of cards from doing the venturing into a dungeon, because one of them lets you do that, you can at least keep your hand size. It doesn't matter how many you have. You also have Chromatic Lantern. That's probably the most important mana rock in the 3-color deck. It's mana fixing and a mana rock. So it lets all of your lands tap for whatever color you want, and that's more important than almost anything. So as far as mana rocks in a 3-color plus deck, that is the most important one. And then a couple of the spells you've got from white. You've got Tithe, which lets you go get planes. And you've got Gifts of Estates, which also lets you go get planes. So those are some of the suggestions for the ramp that I can give you. There are obviously more expensive ones that I mentioned all the time, like a Mana Crypt or a Jeweled Lotus or a Mox Diamond, but I've mentioned that plenty of times, so I'm just going to mention it. You know what they are. If you don't, I suggest looking them up, but they're very expensive. So again, that's the ramp section. I'm going to move on from there to the dudes. So as far as the dudes go, we're going to have, this is going to be the biggest section. We're going to have a couple of different things you can look into. So I'm going to start off with the venture dudes. And when I say dudes, I mean the creatures. The most obvious is Asurarok, the Archlich. He comes into play, you venture into the dungeon, and if you haven't completed the Tomb of Annihilation one, he comes back to your hand. So obviously that's a repeated way to venture into the dungeon for quite cheap, actually. You've got Barrowin of Clan Under. I can't really read how that says. Yeah, Marwin of Clan Under. You've got Displacer Beast as well. All these are helping you venture. You've got Nadar, Selfless Paladin, and then you've got Juan, whatever, T. Malison. All of them will help you with your venturing for that aspect of this deck. They all do something a little different with their, some of them return to your hand, some of them, go to the grave and then come back, Either way, they all help you do a good job of venturing. You have aristocrat style stuff. So this section is actually quite large as far as what you can do with it. I'm going to mention some of them. I'll show you a couple of them. We'll start off with Ayara, the first of Lock Twain. It's a good addition to any deck that's looking to do aristocrats. It helps you with, especially if you're playing a lot of black creatures. This deck seems to lean heavily into the black. You've got, obviously, the next couple ones, Blood Artist and Bontu the Glorified, or Cruel Celebrant, Falcon Wrath Noble, or Zolaport Cutthroat. All of them all say basically the same thing as, creature dies, opponents lose a life, you gain a life. All aristocrats. And then the little extra one for aristocrats is Sir Conrad the Grim. Whenever a card goes to your graveyard, that's a creature card from anywhere, so you mill, it has the ability to mill. So if a card gets milled, or it dies, or it gets discarded from your hand, you can do a damage to each opponent. So it's another little additional jab every once in a while. You don't get to gain the life, but you still get to do the damage. And then you got a couple other really different ways that you can go about with your creatures. So you have things that self-return. There was one in the deck, but another one would be like Master of Death. You've got cards in the deck already like Revelar that returns others. You've got persist creatures, and there's a bunch of them in the color combinations here, like Glenalendra Archmage. She can counter a spell, and she returns with persist. You've got Undying. The king of Undying is Mikaeus the Unhallowed, so it makes all your non-humans have Undying, so they return to play with a +1/+1 counter. You have self-sacrificing creatures, like the one card that was in here that when it comes into play, everybody sacks a creature. So Flesh Bag Marauder is a good addition. Helps it's redundancy on certain things. That's one of them. You have ones that sack other dudes like Mikaeus, or I'm sorry, not Mikaeus. Ghoulcaller Gisa. You can sacrifice a thing to make zombie tokens. So it's actually sacks other things, makes them go to the graveyard. You can venture into the dungeon because of Sefris out, and then you can create sack fodder for more shenanigans. And then you've got cycle dudes. They had in here the blue guy that flies that cycles, but you can do better than that. Like Archfiend of Ifnir is a much better option if you want to use guys that cycle, that go to the graveyard so you can draw a card off of them. And that's just a couple of the suggestions that I can give you. Those are off the top of my head that I could think of as I was trying to put this video together. So, on to the spells. Alright, so with spells, we're going to go over the options that you can use. I'm going to give you one option for each specific type that you can go with. So, you have Wrath of God or effects like that. So, mass wiping, mass removal of cards. Also very good in a deck that likes it when things die. You have targeted removal like Murder. I saw Swords of Plowshares was in here already, so that's a good start. You can add more in like the Murder. You can do mass enchantment or artifact removal in the colors that you're in. You have that option. White is basically all based on destroying everything. So Cleansing Nova, I believe that one says you can destroy either just creatures or just artifacts or just enchantments. One of them does that. There's a mass removal spell in white that lets you choose artifacts, enchantments, or creatures. So we're going to go with that. We're in black, so you're going to want to tutor for your answers or for your combo pieces or whatever. So you have Demonic Tutor, Vampiric Tutor, Grim Tutor, all those tutors. I'm just going to, I'm not going to name them all, but there are a bunch of them. You have other ones in the colors, like white has one that can get enchantments or artifacts. Just there are tutors that you can add in here. There are card draw, like mass card draw spells, like Stroke of Genius. There was another one that was just printed in this, I believe, in the Dungeons and Dragons Commander, where you basically, I think it's 3 to choose to draw X cards. Like it's 3 blue, or a blue and 2 and an X, kind of like Stroke of Genius. And then it has 2 effects. You can draw X cards, or if you control your commander, you can draw X cards and do something else. So there are a bunch of them. There's the one that is 3 blue and X and draw X cards, and then it shuffles back into your library. So there are mass draw cards. There are single draw cards, Opt or Brainstorm or Peak or, all those other ones. Good card draw in this color combo. And then the final spell type that I'm going to mention is things like Living Death or Living End. They are mass removal and then returning stuff back to play for you, for everybody. But for the most part, you're going to have more creatures in the grave, because that's the whole point of this deck, is to get creatures to go to the grave. so it'll benefit you more, and then you get extra sack fodder. So those are a few of the spells that I would suggest for this deck. They're actually, this color combination is really good when it comes to complementing each other, especially for what this deck wants to do. So we're going to go into the enchantments now. And again, as I just said, this set of colors complement each other very well. So I'll go into the enchantments, and I'm only going to name a couple. So for draw, you have things like Ristic Study, Mystic Remore, all that good stuff. I know they're a pain in the ass, but guess what? They're a pain in the ass because they're good. Aristocrat style cards, you have a Bastion of Remembrance. It was just printed recently. Not that recently, but recently enough. It does what you want it to do when you lose a creature. Everybody loses a life, you gain a life. You have things to help you with sacking, and there's a lot of stuff that helps you with sacking. So we're going to go into 4 of them right off the bat. You've got things like Dictate of Erebos. So whenever a creature you control dies, everybody else sacrifices a creature. You have things that let you sack things. So like Vampiric Rites, who I think you gain a life and draw a card if you sacrifice a creature. Or Attrition, which basically lets you sacrifice a creature to make somebody else sacrifice a creature. Let's see, you have Black Market, so whenever a creature dies, you get a counter on it, and it helps ramp you up so that you have available mana during your first main phase. You have something like Phyrexian Reclamation, which lets you retrieve things from the graveyard. You have to pay a little life, but sometimes life is worth it. And then you've got targeted enchantment, return from the dead spells like Animate Dead. There are a couple in black that let you do that. There are combos in black and red that go infinite because of things like that. For this deck, I'm not going to suggest that that's what you do, is get things like Animate Dead and put it in here. But they could be helpful, depends on what your meta is and how you like to play. So take a look at a couple of those and see if that's what you want to do. All right. So then next we're going to go into artifacts. Don't have a lot written down here, but you know, some of them are quite useful. You have sack outlets. We know about the altars, so Ashnod's Altar, Phyrexian Altar, always good additions to any deck. It helps ramp you up a little bit in a deck that wants to do aristocrat stuff and sack creatures. They're both free to sack, so that's always a bonus. You have some card draw and not a lot. I'm going to mention Skull Clamp. It's because you can, if you use like Castle Ardenvale to make 1/1s, you can attach it to the 1/1. The 1/1 will die. You draw 2 cards. You know how that goes. But other ways you can do is you can attach it to a token, and if it doesn't kill the token, sacrifice the token for another effect, like maybe an Ashnod's Altar, so you can get 2 mana for doing it. So there's that. You have aristocrats in artifacts. Bantu's Monument, one of my favorites. It makes black creatures 1 less to cast, so that helps with Acerarak, making that 2 to cast. And then whenever a creature comes into play, or I think it's whenever a creature dies or comes into play, I can't remember which one it is. I'll have it up here for you to see. Your opponents all lose a life, you gain a life. And then you have 2 utility ones that are great in color. So Bolas' Citadel, again, you should be gaining enough life that Bolas' Citadel's drawback of having to pay life is not really a drawback. It's actually okay, and you can play spells for essentially free. And then you have the Great Henge, which will help you give you life. So it'll give you 2 life every round of turns. So at least that'll help alleviate some of the pain from Bolas' Citadel. So those are a few of the artifacts that I can think off the top of my head that you can add to the deck, and it'll actually improve this one. And now we're going to do the planeswalkers. So I only have a couple that I can think of that would actually help this deck immensely. We're going to give 2 Lilianas. We're going to go with Death's Majesty and the Dreadhorde General. They create tokens for fodder. And then they have benefits like the Dreadhorde General lets you draw cards off of the death. And, you know, they all have benefits on top of just creating tokens. So those 2 are good ones. But then we have two of the newer planeswalkers that were created recently. You got Lolth, the Spider Queen. She helps create tokens, and then she has other effects that'll help you in the game that will fit the theme of this deck. And then you have the Tevish Zat, who also creates tokens that can be used as Skull Clamp fodder or blockers or what have you. And then there are other benefits it has, you know, to help the theme of this deck, which is all about venturing in the dungeons. They don't, neither one of them do that, but they help you with aristocrats. They help you with, you know, killing all of your other opponents' creatures. So those are the 4 off the top of my head that I can think of currently that would help this deck. I'm sure there are others, but at the moment I can't really think. I mean, other than there are white ones that create tokens. Like, I'm sure that there are Elspeths out there, the ones that create, the one that creates 3/1/1s, great. But I believe that the 4 I just gave you would help better than just creating tokens. So take a look at them, tell me what you think. For the final section, we're going to just do a couple of win cons to make this deck work a little bit better. I'm going to start off with the old tried and true and very boring. We're going to do a Sanguine Bond and Exquisite Blood. That could be an option for you. It's a little boring, it's a little played out, but it works. We're in the right color. But if you want to spice up a little bit more, let's try something new. Or at least a little, not really new, but a little different. So, the idea came from me because of thorough investigation. It helps you create clue tokens. In my opinion, clue tokens are very underrated. For colors that can't draw cards, it's actually really good. It provides you an artifact. It helps you draw a card. I know it costs a little bit to do it with mana-wise, but not a bad way to go. So it gave me the idea. Why not try it with other things? So we're going to try adding an Academy Rector. Not Academy Rector. I'm sorry. What is it called? Academy Manufacturer. So it says whenever you create a clue, a treasure, or a food, instead of creating that, you create all 3, right? So with thorough investigation, you're creating clue tokens. So every time you create a clue token, you're going to get a treasure token and a food token on top of that. Why not double down on that? You're in black and white, so why not add things like Revel in Riches, Monologue Tax, and Smothering Tide as an extra win con? You're already being able to create some with thorough investigation in the actual precon. Why not double down on that? Add an Academy Manufacturer and add those 3 cards in, and bam, you got your win con. So that's just a couple of different things you can add to the deck to make the deck a little bit more powerful. Alright, so that is actually it for the little upgrade guide for this deck. It is the Dungeons of Death, Dungeons and Dragons Commander Precon. I do want to thank you for watching if you stuck with it. This is when I take the time to ask you, please do me the favor, liking the video, subscribe to the channel if you have not done so yet already, and share this out to anybody who's looking to see what's inside the actual box for the Dungeons of Death Precon. Wants a little upgrade guide for it, and a lot of people ask about that throughout the year, so I'll throw that out into certain Facebook groups whenever they're asked, just to give you my little 2 cents. Not everybody's going to agree with my upgrades, but that's what's great about Magic, is you don't have to agree on everything. So do me that favor, do those 3 things for me. If you need to contact me in any way, shape, or form, you got Facebook, it's Bluebears Games /online. I'll have those up here as well. Email bluebearsgames@gmail.com, or you can just leave me a comment in the comment section of this video and tell me how to contact you, and I'll go ahead and do so. So, for those of you that don't know, I'm also the Christmas season has begun. I've been pretty busy, so check out the Facebook Marketplace. I have a bunch of my budget brew decks up there. I have Commander budget decks up there. I have mystery packs that I have been doing for years up there, so go ahead and take a look at them as well. You can also find them on the Facebook page. I have stickied the budget battle brew decks, but you can also find my advertisements within the posts of the Commander Precon decks that I make and the mystery packs as well. So if you need any more information on them, just contact me again. The contact information is up there. Other than that, that is my time for the week. I want to thank you for joining me, and I will see you all next week.